Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. Happy New Year. I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Debra Boggs, and she's an executive career job search and board candidate expert, and she's got a fantastic story. Today's topic is going to be all about business, corporate board, and it's going to be a fantastic discussion. So, Debra, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to it, Christopher.
Yeah, and I love this idea. So, I love this conversational style. Set the stage for the audience about your business, your background, your experience, and the work that you currently do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I launched, scaled, and now run an executive career management firm. So DNS Executive Career Management. And what that means for us today is that we work with VP to board level leaders to prepare for and navigate their high level searches. So we're not a search firm. We don't do placements, but we're like the home stagers to make a luxury property look expensive before it goes on the market. Yeah, so that's the work that we do. And, I had a winding road to get here. I didn't actually intend to start a business, and I certainly didn't intend to do the work that I'm doing today. But at the start of it, I just really loved working with candidates to prepare for their job searches, help them, gain confidence to go for stretch roles and things like that. And I had done that on the side, and it kind of snowballed and took over my life as a passion project. And a few years ago, my firm really niched down in working with executives because we found that the executive job search and the way senior leaders need to take themselves to market is completely different. And the way that they go to market, do the job search process, everything that's involved in that is different than for everybody else. And so we wanted to really offer a service for that group of people that weren't really well served with a lot of other firms at the time.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because talk about how this project that you're doing full time, started out as a side because a lot of people are doing, side incomes and they kind of want to do this full time and uh, talk about navigating that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been officially in business 7 years, a little over 7 years now. But when we first started, I say we because I really started this with my husband, and then I replaced him in the business during the pandemic when he took a more active role in taking care of our kids in school, at home, and all of that stuff. But you know, rewind back further, and I had been working as director of career services for a university. And I thought that was my dream job. I thought that was it for me. It was what I wanted. I was really excited about it. I had worked really hard to get it. And I realized that I liked it, but the pieces that gave me the most energy and the most joy and working directly with candidates was the smallest part of my job. And and so when I left that role, I actually took another corporate role. I was vice president of business development for an online training company, but I kept doing this resume writing on the side, kind of as a side hustle passion project, because I felt like I had all this creative energy and I wanted to do something with it. I didn't necessarily know that was going to be a business at the time. Had I known it was going to be a business at the time, I maybe would have set up some processes and standards up front. Instead, I had to go back and kind of put those things in place later. But I did that part time for about as a side hustle, a freelancer for about 6 months. And then my husband and I sat down and were like, what would this be if we actually added some branding around it and tried to really make a name for ourselves in this industry? Um, so we did that, got a website, got a business name, did those things. And then my business continued to grow. And then it got to the point where I thought, about 6 months later, I thought, what could this be if I could focus on it full time? Because right now, at that point, I had been turning business away. I had been, I was too busy. I couldn't do all the things, all the opportunities that were coming to us because I had a demanding full time job. And so we actually decided to make the leap. And when I left my full time role, I wasn't making full time income yet, but I had enough income and enough opportunities to know that I could ramp up pretty quickly if I could just go all in. And that's what I did. We kind of just hopped in, went all in, and within a few months, I was recovering my full time income.
Yeah, interesting. And I love this. For a lot of people who are interested in starting their side incomes, and there's comes a point when basically you're making enough income, and then kind of like if you stick with your current situation, you're gonna miss a lot of opportunities. So that's the time, and it's kind of like the opportunity cost. And then And I
Mhm.
just love this idea where you take something on the side and do something full time. So kind of, I love these themes. And so navigating the executive labyrinth, and you've got extensive experience in executive career growth, and share some of the most common challenges senior leaders face in the job market today, and how can they effectively overcome them.
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's something we could talk about all day long. But I would say, the most common challenge I see that executive job seekers make, the clients that come to me, or the people that I typically have conversations with, are people that have built their career through their network, through their, reputation, getting promoted, getting recruited, moving through, getting opportunities to take things on, and they grow their career kind of organically. And then they find themselves at a high rung on the ladder, but they've never had to do a job search at their level, right? They find themselves having to take themselves to market for the first time at this level, and they're ill prepared for what the executive job search looks like, and how to do that, and how to communicate their value, and how to find opportunities and things like that. And so, it's usually at this point someone will call our firm, and then they will send us a resume that is literally the exact same format that they used coming out of business school or out of college, and they've just been adding to it, right? And so the number one thing I would say, is understanding how the executive job search is different, and the fact that, a lot of people just want to add the last job to that resume and then start applying online. And that's not effective for an executive job seeker, because the competition is so much stronger for executive roles, and there's less inventory of roles, right? There's less, a company could have 20 people on the marketing team, but they only have one chief marketing officer. And so you have to think about your job search differently. And I think that's the first hurdle to overcome.
Yeah. It's quite, because I have I'm part of this healthcare newsletter, and I've seen a lot of recent, CEO tenure. It sounds like the middle suite and the C suite is now the 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 disruption is coming to them. Before it was kind of like the entry and just kind of the employees, but now middle
Yeah.
management and C suite, they're just now, you know, they're coming after their jobs, whatever it is, technology or regulation, all of that. And talk about the longevity of a middle manager and C suite. Here you see, executives getting fired, leaving, departing. It's almost like it's almost like an airline CEO. It's like their tenure is not very long.
No, the tenures aren't always that long. I work with an expert in the executive compensation space, and he was a senior HR leader for several Fortune ranked companies, and he was an employment lawyer. And he says that, for C-level leaders, especially, it's not if you'll get fired, it's when you'll get fired. Everyone will get fired at some point. And so it's preparing for that ahead of time. But so just knowing that at that level, there's a ton of things that can happen, right? If you're somewhere else on the VP or C-level team, not necessarily the CEO, if a new CEO comes in, they're going to want their own team. And that has nothing to do with you or your performance. It just is what it is. And so there's a lot of things that can happen to an executive career that people in the middle are more insulated from. But once you get up to the top, the mistakes are glaring. They're sometimes you can see them from space, right? Or they make it to the moon. So there's just all sorts of things that happen that you don't necessarily need to worry about at other levels.
Yeah, it's like I said, in the past it was kind of like the executives and kind of middle managers, they could kind of have a scapegoat, and now it's like, people are now they're in the spotlight. Um they can't hide and run, and so there's a lot more transparency.
Right.
So the next question is, beyond the job boards, I haven't checked these, online job boards aren't always the best option for executive level job seekers. Most of the time it's who you know. And what alternative strategies would you recommend for those looking for high level opportunities in today's market?
Absolutely. So, what you don't want to do is the online job boards, because number one, the most companies are not going to fill senior level roles that way. And number two, there's a ton of reasons why you may not get called back that have nothing to do with your qualifications. But if you're applying online and that's your main go to market strategy, then you're going to get rejection after rejection, and that's not going to help your ego, right? While you go through the process.
Yeah.
And you're going to need a healthy ego to go through the salary negotiation process, right? So like it all ties together. So what I suggest is there's a few other channels that make more sense for executive job seekers. And the first is certainly networking. Your network is really going to be able to open doors for you. They're really going to be able to help you kind of bypass the line when it comes to applying online or sending a resume out. And before you even start to network, I'm going to take a step back and say the number one thing you want to do is decide on what your focus is going to be. Get really clear on your ideal next opportunity. And the reason is at this level, you've done a lot of different things and you can probably do a lot of different things, but you can't, you have to have a targeted job search or a ton of things are going to come at you, right? And you want to be able to focus on what makes the most sense for you, what falls in your, what the areas that you want to spend your time on, the types of companies you want to spend your time on, and things like that. Because what we don't want to do is reach out to our network or start applying jobs and just say, I'm available for what, so I think we all get those messages in LinkedIn. I know I certainly do all the time that say, I'm looking for a new opportunity, keep me in mind if you see anything.
Yeah.
That doesn't tell me anything, and I can't help open a door for you if I don't know what that looks like, right? So I always suggest get clear on your goal first, and then you can decide that your go-to-market strategy and your channels for the job search. So once you get really clear on your goal, then certainly you can start building and activating your network. You can potentially work with recruiters and executive headhunters. The caveat I would say to that is that's where if you're clear on your goal, then you can decide whether working with recruiters makes sense for you or not, because this could be a whole separate podcast, but recruiters don't work for the candidates, they work for the company, and they're being mandated by the company to fill a very specific role with a very specific candidate. And so you being, so the candidates that are most attractive to recruiters are currently working or newly off work, not someone who's coming back from a long break. Someone who's looking for an apples to apples role in a similar industry with a similar title. Those things make you attractive to recruiters. If you're looking to make a big shift, then again, it's kind of applying online, right? Where you're going to get a lot of rejections and think it's you, and it's not you. It's that you don't fit the profile for what they are working within. And then finally, the other option that's often overlooked is focusing on companies, not opportunities, and then networking into companies. And so, looking at, okay, what are what companies make sense for those ideal roles you're looking for? And then, networking into those opportunities, because what would be great is if someone found you as a candidate and was like, wow, Christopher's amazing. He's got all the talent to take us to the next level. Where do we fit him in this company? Versus, oh, okay, so Christopher applied to this job. Does he match all of the criteria we're looking for against all these 400 other people that applied, right?
Yeah.
So it's an often overlooked channel, and I love to use Crunchbase data to find companies with all sorts of criteria to help you think through options that you may not know about.
Yeah. I read somewhere that a lot of online postings are just ghost postings, or just posting it, and then majority of the time it's they already have somebody in mind. And which brings me to my next question is, if, for example, if like the competition for like C-suite or executive level is so high, then they already have people in mind. If you're not an insider, you're I this is my guess, you probably have 1% chance of just even getting your foot in the door, let alone just like multiple interviews and all of that. So what's to stop somebody from just saying, screw this, I'm gonna start my own company, I'm gonna go into consulting, I'm gonna do my own thing? What How do people navigate this decision?
Such a great question, and it's one I talk to my candidates about all the time, because especially our clients who've had these great leadership roles, sometimes are approached by companies to do a consulting role, and they think, oh, I want to be fractional, or I want to be a consultant, I don't want to go back full time. And that's great, and some candidates do really, really well at that. The thing that I caution a lot of people about is that there's a lot more involved in becoming a consultant or working fractional that they're not seeing. Sometimes you don't see, right? You're building a business and you're constantly hustling for your next opportunity or your next contract, right? And so if you're not comfortable with sales, so this happens a lot with, say, sometimes with, corporate compliance, or I see it a lot with like supply chain or things like this that aren't naturally sales oriented, and they want to do consulting. And unless you have a very deep network and don't mind, being forward and asking for things, that can be just as hard as a job search, except you're doing it all the time.
uh, yeah. which it's kind of interesting because which brings me to my next question is so you have you've got this thriving business, and the next step is kind of the first step to success. And what do you believe is the most important initial step in launching an effective job search, especially those targeting executive or board level positions?
Yeah, I think the first thing and the thing that I tell my candidates is to get, and I know we already touched on a little bit, but is to get clear on that ideal role, right? You want to really understand what you're looking for because that will inform every other piece of your job search, including pulling your resume together, your LinkedIn profile, your job search strategy, all of that stuff, who you're going to network with. Having a clear picture on the front end makes everything else easier. The other thing is, I would say, really understand your unique value and then weave those into your executive resume, in your LinkedIn profile, and again, all of these other things, because at the executive level, tenure and years of experience, titles, and even like company size and things like that are going to be everyone who's qualified are going to have those same things. That's table stakes. That's not what sets you apart. And so sometimes, you'll see resumes that will say 25 years of experience in marketing leadership. Okay, great. So does everybody else. What did you do in those years? And so understanding what your value is, your accomplishments, how you moved the needle, how you made business, how you grew business, how you impacted the business. These are all things you need to gather and have a really clear picture of before you start your search, because otherwise you're not setting yourself apart from anybody else in the market.
Mm, yeah. We have we have around 5 more minutes, and the other question is this is one of my questions just out of curiosity is what is a board resume and a career resume? What's the difference, and what are essential elements to be make a strong impression on board level recruiters?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of our candidates have had a strong executive career, and they are looking at paid board opportunities, corporate board opportunities, and they're looking to, move into the next phase of their career. And maybe that's kind of that second act sort of idea. And so, we always suggest that they have a career resume, for job search stuff, and a board resume or a board bio for board opportunities. And they can be similar, but the way you want to think about it is the board skills are different because from a board candidate perspective, you're being brought on as an advisor to the C-level team, not as a tactical doer or executor, right? So the skills around your day-to-day accomplishments, people leadership, budget management, all of that stuff aren't really relevant to the board space. You need to think bigger in the areas that you can you can advise a C-level team on strategy and direction, and not necessarily tactical everyday doing.
Yeah. Finally, you've jumped through all the hoops, you've got it. You talk about salary negotiation secrets. You've what are some key strategies that people can employ to successfully navigate better compensation packages?
Absolutely. So I am going to be sharing some advice that again, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, and I failed to mention his name is Ezra Singer. He's amazing. So if anyone's looking to negotiate packages of over 500,000, definitely reach out to Ezra because he's the adult in the room on this topic. But what he suggests and what I've seen it work for candidates at all levels is to not give a salary range in the beginning. So, you get on the phone with a recruiter or, whatever it is. And one of the first questions is what is compensation you're looking for? Don't give a number, because when you give a number, you're immediately capping your opportunity and you're never going to get anything higher than that. You can't go any higher. And you don't know what the company had in mind.
Uh,
So a friend of mine recently employed that strategy, and they offered so the recruiter asked, and she said, I'm sure there's a range for this position. I'd love to know the range. And then the recruiter gave the range, and the range was 3 times her current salary. She would have never mentioned that number. But not being the first to put a number out there is really helpful in keeping you from capping that opportunity.
hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always the first person that says the number is actually there's a negotiation secret where it's like if the first person with a number is actually at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to ask like what's the budget, and that way you can and then what's your that way you can kind of figure it out. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting conversation. How can people find out more about you?
So people can find me if feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I give a ton of content and advice on job search strategy, board searches, things like that. So on LinkedIn, it's Debra Boggs, DebraBoggs, and you can learn more about my company and our services for executive job seekers at dscareermanagement.com.
Yeah. For all the audience out there listening, Debra for coming on. Give her a follow on her socials. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Christopher. This was a lot of fun.